Thing. Thanks for the introduction, George and Paul. And thanks, Bobby, for organizing this and inviting me and everyone that signed on. Before we get started, I just want to let y'all know I am working from home, obviously, like a lot of folks. So if I quickly mute myself, it's because I have three dogs that are laying right here in my study with me, and sometimes they like to alert me about things that they hear. So if I quickly mute myself, it's so y'all don't have to hear the commotion. And then I don't have a formal presentation. So what I generally like to share my screen. If I was there in person, I would pull up the web on a presentation board and just walk you through some ideas. And then I'll be happy to take questions. I know this group is going to have a lot of questions. I recognize some of the names that have signed on, and these folks aren't shy about asking me questions. So I just need to know from Bobby what our time limit is so that I know when I need to quit talking and leave enough time for Q&A. So if Bobby, you tell me when you want to finish, that way I leave plenty of time
Certainly,
for what's that?
certainly. We scheduled this for an hour and a half. That's
Okay.
our typical time for when we have in-person luncheons. But that hour and a half also included people sitting down and eating. That said, most of our Zoom meetings have been going about an hour,
Okay.
but we have scheduled it for an hour and a half. So um, I, I leave it up. I find that after about an hour, we start losing folks. So
Okay.
if you want to shoot for that time frame, we're good.
No problem. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'll just share my screen and go through my normal stuff. Many of y'all are regulars and you've seen some of this, but just in case there's someone new, I want to be able to make sure that they see these things as well. So let's see, you are sharing the screen. So y'all all should be seeing right now the Harris County Flood Control District homepage, and I make it a point to be very transparent and show people what we're doing on our webpage as a focus of all the efforts that the Flood Control District has going on. We recently redid our webpage, maybe not recently, maybe just 3 or 4 months ago, and it's broken into three main sections: resilience, recovery, and readiness. And that's where you can go and kind of see our major efforts from there. We try to, my staff do a pretty good job of keeping our activity since Harvey up to date. So you know that we're working hard throughout the county, and you know at a high level what we're doing. If you want to know anything about the bond program, it has its own button here. Then our interactive mapping tools, home buyout program, our MapNext program, which I'll touch on briefly, but this is that's our program where we're remapping the floodplains to the entire county, and I'll be sure to touch on that a little bit. Manuals and our other programs, and then of course we have some of our news that you can follow here, and then a list of our partners. One feature about this website is you can enter your address and it'll take you directly to your watershed. And every watershed in Harris County has its own page. So and you can also access it down here at the bottom. So if you wanted Cypress Creek, you could click on Cypress Creek, and the page dedicated to everything that we have going on in Cypress Creek will come up, and you can explore that at your leisure, and you can see all the different projects that we have going on along the side, and so on and so forth. So there's some good information on this page if you're interested in what's going on in Cypress Creek. One thing I wanted to point out, that a lot of people want to know what we're doing, and a lot of the work that we do is office work, working on planning studies and engineering design and that type of work. But we also have a lot of construction going on. So we keep an interactive map that gets updated usually the first week of every single month. Sometimes it's the second week. It depends on some things. You can see everywhere in the county that we have active construction going on today. So you could drive out to any of these sites, and the more you zoom in, the more detail about the location of the site is provided. And so you could go out today on any one of these sites that I'm showing on the screen, and you should be able to see Harris County Flood Control District contractors working on a construction project. The The construction projects are color coded. The ones that are in the black color are maintenance projects, and the ones that are in a red color are capital improvement projects. They're also all listed on the left-hand side with their budgets. And then you can also click on each project and it'll take you to that specific part of our website to know what's going on. So maybe if you're curious, like what's number 14? Well, you could go on our list and here's number 14. We're doing a repair project on a channel that we call K137. That's just a tributary to Cypress Creek that we're doing a repair on from Hurricane Harvey. So that's how, if you ever want to see us where we're actually turning dirt, people like to say, or doing construction, this is the place to go, and it's updated the first week of every month. I also always at every presentation, I like to point out our Harris County Flood Control District flood warning system. And it is very easy to find. You can just type in harriscountyfws.org. If you don't know about it, it is a very popular tool for when it's raining outside. We have hundreds of thousands of people visit the site during storm events that occur. And during Hurricane Harvey, we had over 1 million people on the site, believe it or not, which is basically almost a little less than a quarter of everyone that lives in the county, which is kind of unbelievable when you think about it. But we maintain a series of real-time rain and stream gauges everywhere in Harris County and many places outside of Harris County, because all of our adjacent counties actually do drain into Harris County. But we maintain a lot of gauges on Cypress Creek. We have one at Cypress Creek in Kirkendall, Cypress Creek at Stubner Airline, Cypress Creek at 249, Cypress Creek at Grant Road, at Eldridge in Cypress Creek, Huffmeister, and 290. And then we have some even further west, and then one way down at Cypress Wood, closer to where Cypress Creek flows into Spring Creek. So any one of these gauges, let's just pick the Stubner Airline. You can click the link and it will show you, it hadn't rained in a while, but we can change the duration and see the rainfall for this past month. And it'll show you the rain, and this is real time. So when it's raining, this will update every minute, literally, and show you how much rain is falling. You can also come up here to the stream elevation, and you can see the water surface elevation in the channel in real time as well. So it is a very useful tool if you're interested in learning about what's happening real time as it's raining outside. So, and then one other item on here, this is our MapNext webpage. Many people, especially during Hurricane Harvey, we had quite a few folks that flooded that weren't in a mapped floodplain. And that's been happening in every flood event. And the last time the county was completely remapped was after Tropical Storm Allison, way back in June of 2001. That remapping effort was concluded with the new flood insurance rate maps that are used today for the most part back in June of 2007. So those maps get updated from time to time, but that was the last time we did a countywide remapping effort. But now, starting last year in 2019, in partnership with Fema, we are remapping the entire county. And this is a website dedicated to that program. It's around a $30 million program, so it's a big effort. And we are remapping the county in a new way. We're using what's called two-dimensional hydraulic modeling, which means that we can, the long story short is we can produce maps that not only show the limits of the floodplain, but we can show how deep the water is in any location in Harris County. We can also show the velocity, or how fast the water is moving in any place in Harris County. And that's not just in the riverine floodplains, but that's anywhere in the entire county. So now what we're going to be able to show are areas that may be at risk of flooding, but maybe not at risk of flooding from when the bayou or the creek comes and spills out of its banks, but when the water's running across the ground to the creek. And so that's a new feature that we're going to be able to share with the public when these mapping products are completed. We broke the county into two halves because we couldn't do it all at one time. It was too much work. So Cypress Creek, the western part of the county, or everything in purple, that's where that's what started first. So the west side started first, which includes the Cypress Creek watershed, and so they're well underway. We started the east side of the county late last year. So here's the schedule. Everyone asked about the schedule, and I'm going to try to figure out where I can see how I can see the comments on this thing, because they went away when I shared my screen. So I'm going to make sure I'm not missing any comments. Give me 1 second. I'm not exactly sure how to make them come back up. When I unshare my screen, I guess I'll see the comments back again. Let's see here. No, that's not it. Okay. So I just not as familiar with Zoom. This is our schedule for the remapping. We started back in 2019. We're obviously in 2020. We're remapping, doing all the engineering work right now. Everything that the flood control district is in charge of is blue. FEMA has all the brown tasks, and we added an approximate schedule. So we obviously can't control how fast FEMA works or their schedule, but we've agreed, FEMA and the flood control district have agreed on these approximate timeframes to have everything done. But the public will be able to see, excuse me, the public will be able to see our preliminary maps and our preliminary results in the spring or summer of 2022. So about 2 years from now, we should have all of the preliminary results available to the public. And in that meantime, in that 2 years between now and then, we are planning on a public education campaign and a community engagement campaign to help educate and teach the public how to understand and read these new mapping products, because they're not going to look like our traditional flood insurance rate maps that some of you may have seen before. It's going to be completely new. So there's going to be some learning that we're in charge of to help people understand what we're providing and how they can use it to help them make decisions, to help people make decisions. And so that is that's the main information I wanted to share on our webpage. I'm going to unshare my screen, and I'm going to see if there are questions already or not. So let me unshare my screen, and it'll come back. Oh, there they are. Okay. So, there's a lot of questions. Okay. So let's see. Bobby, do you just want me to go through them from top to bottom and get started?
Yeah, if you want to go through them, or I can moderate them for you, or you can just handle them yourself. And then I have a few questions here that were submitted to me that I will ask you at some point.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at the group chat, and I'll say Shane Dougal. If I pronounce the plans are for the pond created on the site of the 53 acres at the corner of Hutton and Vintage Preserve, is there anything we can do to encourage the owners to make it a water feature with lovely landscaping? I am familiar with that development. That was brought to my attention probably 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, when I guess all that was started. And I don't know if they're. I mean, I don't. I'm assuming that you can contact the owner and write a letter or an email or a phone call and ask them what their plans are for that detention basin over on Vintage Preserve Parkway, and see what their ultimate goal is for it. I don't know off the top of my head what their landscaping plans are for that stormwater detention basin. If you have trouble, Jane, I can put my email address on here, or Bobby can send it out to the group. And if you have trouble finding out, you can always email me, and I can try to track it down for you. Sometimes I can get folks to return my call a little more easily these days than we used to at the flood control district. I've lived 40 years just east of Kirkendall, never flooded, but Harvey, we almost flooded. Is there anything to be done in Inverness to allow water to keep flowing and not back up? So I'm glad you didn't flood. That's a good thing. And on Inverness, I'm assuming the Inverness Forest subdivision. And if I need to, I can always flip back to my screen to show maps to illustrate stuff, if that'll be helpful. This is from J. Williams 1. The flood control district is working on a project right now, or we're just finishing up a project right now on the Cypress Creek main channel at the Inverness Forest levee. There's quite a bit of erosion that occurred during Harvey, and if we're not done, we're very close to being done on that major erosion repair project across from the Inverness Forest levee. I'm not aware of any other projects in that area that are there in the Inverness Forest area. Besides that major repair project, we're spending close to $6 million in repairing Cypress Creek in that location because of the bad erosion. So hopefully that answers your question. Mark Howard, he's a civil engineer that moved to the area near Cypress and Little Cypress. Sure. I'm asking for the purposes of planning for an evacuation. What are the design storms that result in flood stage conditions? So along at the confluence of Little Cypress and Cypress, in a short story, it's complicated. It depends if it's raining. If the majority of the rain falls in the Little Cypress Creek watershed, there's a different response than if a majority of the rainfall falls in the Big Cypress Creek watershed out in the western part of the county. Or if it's raining on both Little Cypress Creek and Big Cypress Creek at the same time, then there's a third condition on when water gets really high at that confluence of where Little Cypress Creek and Cypress Creek come together. And so I can't answer your question right now, but what I can do, Mark, if please email me again, I'll give my email address, and I'm going to put you in touch with our program manager. We have a program at the Flood Control District called the Little Cypress Creek Frontier Program, where we're building a series of major stormwater detention basins in the Little downstream on Cypress Creek. And that gentleman's name's Erwin Burden, and he may be able to answer that question with a little more detail than I can. So be sure to follow up with me, and I can put you in touch with the right person who can answer that question and probably give you more information than you want to know about what we're doing on Little Cypress Creek, especially in that area, because we do have a lot of plans going on in that particular area. Cindy_2. I've heard they're going to remove the trees at Cypresswood and TC Jester and build detention pond. Is that correct? Yes, that's a good question. So the Harris County Flood Control District, here, let me, a picture's worth 1,000 words on this question. So let me get to that on my screen, and I'll flip over and I'll show you. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Stand by. Share. Okay, it says I'm sharing my screen. This is Cypresswood, and this is TC Jester. The Flood Control District, and I can turn on our right-of-way limits, and it will load up here shortly. The Flood Control District owns and fee everything in the yellowish white color. So the Flood Control District owns the land on the south side of Cypresswood, east and on the west side and the east side of TC Jester. And what we're doing out there is we are going to, we split the project into two projects. The west side of TC Jester will go first. And we are going to go into this area. We are going to clear a lot of trees, and we are going to complete the excavation of a stormwater detention basin in this area. The exact footprint is still being worked out as we speak, but we have a contractor lined up, and we have a plan to move forward with that, hopefully in August, if not early September. It really is dependent on some environmental permitting that we're working through with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And we do plan to leave somewhere between a 200 and 300 foot buffer along Cypresswood and along TC Jester of the vegetation as it remains today, so that when you drive through either on Cypresswood or drive on TC Jester and you look over in that area, you probably won't be able to see the detention basin. It'll be behind the vegetative buffer that we're going to leave along the roadway. And so that's the first project. The second project is on the east side of TC Jester, and it's a much larger basin. You can see this is a much larger area, and it has some pretty, we have a pipeline corridor that runs right through the middle of it right here. And we also have a lot more environmental issues that we're going to have to work through, such as wetlands impact mitigation and so on and so forth. We also have another issue that has nothing to do with engineering, but the Greater Houston Off-Road Bike Association, known as GORBA, has come onto our property without our knowledge and built an extensive bike trail system on both sides of TC Jester. And we have to work with them because we are going to remove quite a bit of their bike trail system, and they're not really happy about that. But they forgot to ask the flood control district for permission to come onto our property and build improvements. So we're working through that issue as well. But what's going on the east side of TC Jester is that we've hired a professional engineering firm. They're called Pacheco Koch Engineers, and they're working on what we call a preliminary engineering report to come up with the final configuration and function of the basin that we're going to build on TC Jester on the east side. And that includes the surveying, geotechnical engineering, environmental permitting, and then the design of the basin, and of course the landscape features that will go into that. And so that also is an ongoing project. They're working on that right now. We're also, the Flood Control District plans to submit for a grant. It's a grant called a Community Development Block Grant Mitigation, CDBG MIT project. That's administered by the Texas General Land Office, the GLO. And then it goes up all the way to Washington, D.C. through HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So we plan on we haven't done it yet because the rules and the application haven't even been made available to us yet, but our plan is to submit for a $10 million grant to help fund the construction of this project. And we probably won't be able to begin construction on this project at least for another year or two while we work through the environmental permitting and the preliminary engineering. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I know a lot of other people may be wondering what is going on in this area. But this is a high priority area for the flood control district right now. So I have to stop sharing to get back to the chat. So let me do that. And let's see here. I was on Cindy. Okay, so Cindy_2. Now I'm on to Christy Jones, trustee for Lakewood Forest HOA, representing over 2,700 homes. We had severe damage in our back wall and retention lake. It's continuing to erode. Like to see if we can partner with the bond money to fix it. Can you please give me a contact person? Sure. So Christy, you contact me, and we'll talk separately about that. And just so everyone that's listening knows, the Flood Control District is working with the Harris County Engineering Department on 92 subdivision drainage improvement projects. And several of those subdivision drainage improvement projects are in the Cypress Creek watershed. And we finished the preliminary work on all 92 of those subdivisions. And we're in the process now, the Harris County Engineering Department's in the process right now of working with every single one of those utility districts to determine their level of participation. Where you live and who your MUD is, you may be in your utility district may be in contact with the Harris County Engineering Department about a potential project. And we are working with those MUDs to split these costs of these projects, usually on a 50-50 split, but we're negotiating all those one at a time. So Mario R. Rodriguez, is this being recorded for those not to make it? If yes, where to be available? That's a Bobby question, so I'll let him get with Mario on that one. KTR, what was the site for when we noticed new development? Dirt being thrown around. If you're talking about the active construction site, let me switch back to my screen. So let me share my screen. I'll go back to that real quick. Stand by. So here we are back on sharing my screen. And if you go to the, if I just open up the Harris County main site, which is www.hcfcd.org, Harris County Flood Control District.org. When that opens up, let me Let me close a couple of these tabs here, make it a little easier to see everything. This is our main webpage, and if you scroll to the bottom, there's a big block that says Interactive Mapping Tools. You click that block, and all of our interactive maps will open up. And we have our flood education mapping tool. We have our mowing schedule. Believe it or not, our number one question from the public in Harris County is, when are you going to mow our channel? So in order to handle that, we made our mowing schedule live online. So you could go click this and see when your channel is going to be mowed by the flood control district, our flood warning system. And then the one you asked about is active construction. And so you click on the active construction and it will load up. And then you click on the map one more time. And then our ArcGIS online website will open up. And this is where you can find that information about all of the construction projects that the flood control district's working on. And of course, there's always other construction going on, whether it's another government agency or private construction. These are just solely Harris County Flood Control District active construction projects. And it gets updated every month, usually the first week of the month. So I have to unshare back to get to the comments, unless somebody knows how to make me be able to see the comments without having to flip back and forth. Melissa Ray, when will the updated maps filter down to flood insurance ratings and see the new rates? That's a good question. The plan, I won't flip back to share my screen, but I will open that up. I'll open up the schedule on mapnext.org, and I will tell you. But there's going to be two phases of implementation of the new maps. The first phase will be probably this time in 2 years, in the summer of 2022, where Harris County and hopefully all of the municipalities inside Harris County. So there's 34 different cities that are inside Harris County, either completely inside Harris County or partially in Harris County. We hope that all of them, including Harris County, will adopt the information that comes out in 2 years from now as the best available data and regulate to that for new development. The official flood insurance rate maps probably won't hit, that will set flood insurance premiums, probably won't hit the street or be available until sometime in 2024. So 4 years from now is when those new maps will become official according to our schedule with Fema. So we can't control them, but that's generally when we think those will be effective for flood insurance rates. So about 4 years from now. KTR, commercial development at 13318 Telge. They knocked down all the trees, they extended dirt work. Their efforts temporarily halted because they had no permits. Our main concern is how high they are developing the property. What is the rationale for digging a detention pond, spraying all the dirt around to raise it? It seems counterproductive. Stillwater HOA appreciates helps from flood control. Permits Precinct 3 TCQ enforcing the developer to get permits. Is there a limit to how high? And are there other regulatory agencies we can contact to avoid illegal water shedding and flooding from the property now when it's completed? Okay. A lot going on there. So what has to happen anytime there's new development in Harris County is there has to be a drainage impact analysis done, and it's a standard process. It's an engineering document, engineering exercise that's laid out how it's done in our policy, the Harris County Flood Control District's policy procedure criteria manual, the policy criteria and procedure manual, PCPM. And part of that drainage impact analysis, it involves a lot of things, but one thing that it involves is that there can't be any fill added to the floodplain. So that's against that's not allowed inside the city of Houston. It's not allowed in unincorporated Harris County. So but also there are restrictions from Harris County Engineering Department on the finished floor elevation, how high a building has to be in respect to where it is in the floodplain. So a lot of times what developers do is they'll buy a piece of property and they will excavate a detention basin to provide stormwater retention volume and also mitigate for the fill they're placing in the floodplain. And they take that dirt from the hole they're digging, and then they use it to raise their land to build their whatever they're building. And we see that all the time in the county. Excuse me. And as part of that drainage impact analysis, the engineers that are working for that development have to prove using hydrologic and hydraulic modeling and also engineering calculations that proposed site plan or how they're going to do their development is not, number one, it's not going to increase the fill in the floodplain. And number two, it's not going to cause a flooding risk increase anywhere upstream, downstream, adjacent to that development. We call that a no adverse impact analysis. And so, and again, this isn't easy to do in Harris County. It takes a lot of work to get to that point. So if you see someone developing, they should have a permit. If they don't have a permit, you can always ask the Flood Control District or Harris County permits, and we can quickly look it up. And if they don't have a permit, we can start the enforcement process. All of the enforcement of any regulations goes through the Harris County Permitting Department. It doesn't go through the Flood Control District, but we work very closely together on those types of issues. So, and so that's the rationale for that. And is there any other regulatory agencies to avoid illegal watershedding and flooding? Depends where you are. If it's in unincorporated Harris County, it's Harris County permits and Harris County Flood Control District. If you're inside a municipality like the city of Houston or the city of Jersey Village, you could go to the whatever department is in those particular municipalities that handles permitting and regulations, and they will handle it. So that's really all you have right there. It's a local regulatory thing. It generally doesn't go up to the state or federal level or anything like that. Next question, John Parker. Is there an update you can provide us regarding Ravenno and GC? Let's see. Oh, where to go? John Parker. Ravenno, is there a tentative date in mind will be made to retention area? Does water already been directed to flow in that direction? Thank you. So Ravenno Country Club, the Flood Control District is still talking with the Cypress Forest Public Utility District about the future plans, if any, at the Ravenno Country Club location. The Flood Control District did purchase around 27 acres of the Ravenno Country Club area last year from the owner of the country club part. The part we purchased is the land that houses the parking lot, the clubhouse, the driving range, and the pool and the tennis courts, that front area right on Cypress Wood. The Cypress Forest Public Utility District owns all the remainder acreage that primarily makes up the fairways and basically the golf course of the two 18-hole golf courses. Now there's only one 18-hole golf course operational today, but it used to be two 18-hole golf courses, and that's what the utility district owns. So we're trying to come to an agreement on which portions of the Cypress Forest Public Utility District land the Flood Control District can acquire to build a regional stormwater detention basin in that area. We're still working through a lot of issues. We're not close to a final deal. The Ravenno Country Club, their lease, we leased it back. The Flood Control District provided a lease back to Ravenno that expires on January 30th, 2021, so January of next year. And we hope to have a plan, or one way or the other, whatever's going to happen, worked out before that time. Because the Ravenno folks they're going to make a plan to cease operations probably before that time, because they have a lot of work to do to unwind what they have going on out there. So it's ongoing. Negotiations are very complicated. There's a lot of opinions in the community. Believe me, I've seen and read and heard from hundreds of people who have lots of different opinions. Some are pleasant to deal with, some are extremely unpleasant to deal with. And I want everyone to listen. It's not okay to think you can abuse people that work for the government. it's just y'all. It just makes me really. I really don't know what to say about some of the things that people have told me. I'm doing my job, and I am trying to prevent lower flood risks for everyone in Harris County, but also the Cypress Creek area. And to think how some of y'all behave and how some of y'all talk to me and my staff, y'all are some little people, and y'all are some people are just very ugly, unnecessarily. Let's see here. Are there any FEMA current or planned projects in the Cypress Creek watershed? FEMA FEMA doesn't build infrastructure projects. FEMA does provide some funding through grants for certain projects. And right now, most of the money that FEMA is providing the flood control district in the Cypress Creek watershed is actually for home buyouts. I'm trying to think, I wish I knew the number, but we've completed over 500 single-family residential home buyouts in all over Harris County since Hurricane Harvey. And I don't know how many have been in the Cypress Creek area, but quite a few. So the vast majority of FEMA direct money that's being spent in Cypress Creek watershed is actually in the form of single-family residential home buyouts. And of course, we're remapping the floodplains, which is also partially funded by FEMA and partially funded by our bond money. Greg Frank with Costello. Okay, so Greg with Costello sent me a message. Okay. So it goes back to the Inverness Forest question that someone mentioned earlier. We are working with Inverness Forest. We're a partner with them on the levee, and we're working with them on a recertification program that will take into account our remapping effort. So once the new floodplain maps become effective, we want to make sure there's only 2 levees in all of Harris County. There's Inverness Forest and the Northgate levee up on Spring Creek and I-45. And both those levees have to be certified by FEMA in order to say that they're protecting the neighborhoods behind them. And so we're starting that process of recertification at Inverness pretty soon. So that's a good, thanks for reminding me, Greg, I appreciate that. Crystal Dunbar, when is USACE, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, going to make a decision on the 3rd reservoir? It's a good question. I'm not sure. So the United States Army Corps of Engineers is working on a feasibility study called the Buffalo Bayou and Tributaries Resiliency Study. They have, you can go online on Google and find those web pages. And they are getting close, I believe, to presenting their draft report on what they've been working on. I don't know when that's going to happen. I think it was supposed to happen earlier this year, but it's been pushed back. And I believe they're getting ready to share that with the public in the next few months or so. So I don't know. I haven't read that report. My staff, I have different staff members that are working with the Corps on that issue. And I don't know if the 3rd reservoir is on the table. I'll have to get back to you on that, so you can email me about that. I mentioned improvements to Little Cypress Creek. Upstream of the confluence, there are ongoing improvements to another channel, project number 21, feeding that. Is there a concern with increased risk of bank overtopping immediately downstream of that confluence due to increased flow rates feeding the area? Are there sufficient downstream channel improvements to mitigate increased flow rates? So a lot of what the projects that you're seeing on our active construction, and a lot of the projects that we're doing in the Cypress Creek watershed, and we have several more projects in the works that we'll be working on in the Cypress Creek watershed for the next 2 or 3 years, are what we call maintenance projects. And what we're doing is, in the past, before the bond program, the flood control district had a pretty limited budget. In fact, we had less than $10 million a year to do maintenance, big maintenance projects. Now with the bond passed, we had a project in the bond program that provides $60 million to do major maintenance projects in the Cypress Creek watershed, because we're so far behind on our maintenance program out there due to lack of funding for decades. And so a lot of those projects that you see are repairs or maintenance projects that are fixing eroded banks, removing accumulated silt and sediment in the channel, and actually putting those channels back to their original designed shape and design capacity. So y'all see the construction, and y'all see that we're removing a bunch of material and making the channels bigger. That's actually what they were supposed to be from day one. And so there's not any plans for an increase of flow going into the channel. And in fact, most of the channels that are near Cypress Creek during our flood events, when Cypress Creek comes out of banks, most of the time the tributaries do fine. What happens is Cypress Creek rises up and actually flows back up the tributary channels all up and down Cypress Creek. And so what we're actually doing is providing more volume or more space for the water to go when Cypress Creek comes up as part of this maintenance project. So it's a benefit, and the maintenance projects that we're doing are provide two benefits. The benefit that the original design capacity of all those channels is being restored so that your neighborhoods drain more efficiently and get the water out. Plus, it provides more water for when Cypress Creek comes up and flows back up those tributaries, which it's going to do no matter what. There's more room in the channel as opposed to in the overbanks. So it's a double benefit. And another private question, let's see. So he has, he may not want me to read this out loud. So he wants me to talk about the flood control district on our website posted a conceptual video of what the proposed stormwater detention basin at the Ravenno Country Club could look like. And that video also has produced a lot of controversy, and I got a lot of nasty emails about that. And that's fine. But the whole point of doing that video is several people had asked the flood control district, I really don't know what to think about this proposed project. I really need to see of what could happen out there. So I heard that enough times where we had a consultant available who puts together these types of video renderings very frequently. And I know they do good work. So we met and we went through many iterations. And I showed that video to several key selected members of the community. And we posted it to give people an idea of what it could look like. Now, is the final basin going to look like what's in the video that's on our website? 99% sure it's not. But people asked me over and over, what could it look like? What are you planning? What's something that this area could look like? So we produced that video to help answer that question, because we heard it so many times. And a picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth 10,000 words. So that's what we produced, and it helped a lot of people. We got a lot of good feedback from it, but it also got a lot of people upset again. So we're never going to make everyone happy, and that's just part of the business. But again, that's the point of that video. So and then of course we haven't even started any engineering or planning or anything on the Ravenno, the potential stormwater basin at Ravenno, because we haven't finished any deals with the Cypress Forest Public Utility District. So we're not going to spend any money on any preliminary engineering or surveying or anything like that until I know what the final deal is, if any, that we work out with the Cypress Forest Public Utility District. There is the possibility that we don't do a project at all. Jim Robertson, hey Jim. Status of implementation of the recommendations from the Cypress Creek Major Tributary Study, the Baker Study. Sure. So one of the bond projects was that we are asked to complete was by Dick Smith with Cypress Creek Flood Coalition. There was back in 2003, there was a study completed for all the major tributaries of Cypress Creek, and that study was a really good work effort. The report was really well done, but there was no money to build any of the projects that were recommended back in 2003. So we were asked by many people to update that study as part of the bond, and we did. And that study was completed last year. It's posted online. Anyone can download it and look at it. And we're in the process now. We've hired a firm together with the flood control district. And what we're doing now, what we're in the process of doing, is taking all the projects that came out of that study, and we're building a Cypress Creek Watershed capital improvement program based off that study. And part of the work effort that we're working on as we speak is we have that project produced. That study produced a very long list of potential projects, but we have to have an organized way to implement all those projects, figure out how much they cost, when to build them, and what benefit they provide. And so that's a pretty big work effort that's going to build directly on the previous work effort. So we've hired that consultant. They're starting work as we speak. And hopefully in a year or less, we will have be able to present to the Cypress Creek community their own watershed specific capital improvement program and what the flood control district is going to do over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the Cypress Creek watershed. And in the meantime, what we're doing now is also part of the bond program. We have a $100 million fund to acquire rights of way in the Cypress Creek watershed. And we are actively and aggressively acquiring rights of way up and down Cypress Creek. And we have quite a few properties that we've already purchased. We have quite a few that we're in negotiation or appraisal. And then we have a couple, we're working now to identify even more properties that match up with these projects that were identified in the Baker study. So the flood control district is working right now to acquire property, because you can't build a project if you don't own the land, and land never gets cheaper in Harris County, and they never make any more of it. So we have to be very aggressive on going out and buying properties now before they either get developed or someone buys them that doesn't want to sell them to us. Glenn Rex, is there any coordination between flood control and engineering, which seems to be authorizing a lot of new development in Northwest Harris County? Yes. So the Harris County Engineering Department and the Flood Control District permitting in the Harris County Flood Control District Watershed Management Department. And there is a lot of development that continues to occur everywhere in Harris County. There may be a slowdown later this year into next year, depending on what happens with how the economy recovers or doesn't recover from where we are today. But there is a lot of development going on, and we do work very closely with permitting on that development and make sure they follow all of the current regulations that are in place that apply to new development. Travis, you can read it out loud. I just picked the wrong setting. I'm not trying to be nasty, I promise, just confused. Oh, okay. All right. So his question, that was Travis about privately. This is Travis Hardwick. My question is in conjunction with John Parker's. I'm a member of the Cypress Forest Utility District, and the PUD board has done a good job keeping us updated as to negotiations and planning regarding the Cypress Forest PUD Park on Cypress Wood. However, there is a video posted from the Flood Control District a couple months ago that envisioned a future detention pond inconsistent with the reporting we received around this issue. And can I reconcile? Okay, so basically, yes, the video was made several months ago, and our negotiations with the Public Utility District continue to change and evolve, and they're dynamic. So yes, the video is inconsistent with some of the key issues that we have agreed to in principle with the utility district, namely that the Cypress Forest Public Utility District has a park area. It's not an official park, like even when we have meetings with them, they use air quotes, but the park area that's along Cypress Wood is off the table, and the Flood Control District has agreed that we're not interested in acquiring the park area for the Public Utility District. So Travis, hopefully that answers your question. D. Henson, what are the major sticking points with the utility district negotiations at Ravenno? Is it just valuation? I don't feel, I don't want to get into the details of our negotiation. I want to keep that to myself or to our group that's handling it. But there's several major sticking points. Part of it is money. Money, I mean, anyone that's on here that's ever tried to do deals, money's if always plays into it no matter what. So money is there, but also just there's a level of disruption fear in the neighborhood. Construction is messy. Construction can be loud. Construction can be disruptive. So there's concerns about that, like how the project would be built There's concerns about how it would look when it's finished. There's concerns about how big it would be. There's concerns about who would benefit and who wouldn't benefit. There's concerns about losing the amenities that are there today. There's concerns about how long the area would take to recover from a construction project, how long vegetation would take to establish. So there's a long list of things that we're working through, and it's and there's even more to it than what I just told you. So but we're working easy to get a hold of. I speak with one of the board members fairly regularly. Their attorney is very easy to get a hold of. So we're trying. I just don't know where it's going to end up. I don't think anyone knows where it's going to end up. So and I see Bobby came back on, and it's 12:30. Do you want me to keep going, Bobby, or do you want to wrap it up?
Hey, Matt, thank you. I have a few more questions here on my desk I want to pose to you that were submitted to me. Here's a good general question for you. To date, how much of the bond money has been spent in the county? It's multifaceted here, so I can repeat if you need. How much is completed? How much is work in progress, and how much is in design? And specifically to the Cypress Creek watershed. And then the follow-up to those questions is, and what are you pleased most about the results, and what has been most disappointing to you up to date?
Okay, the first question, I don't have, I have those numbers. I just don't have access to them because my VPN is not working today for some reason. I've had trouble with it in the past. So Bobby, if you allow me, I can give you those numbers and you can send them out to the group. If you give me a chance to deal with my my IT issue that I'm having today. But I do have those numbers. I know that we have, in terms of ballpark figures, we have authorized close to probably 400 million, maybe $450 million worth of work. And that includes anything from right-of-way acquisition, home buyouts, construction projects, engineering design, and so on and so forth. And we spent like paid invoices to people probably in the ballpark of less than 200 million at this point. But it's going up very quickly. We, the flood control district, we're on pace to bid out close to $500 million worth of construction projects in 2020. I don't know where we're at right now, but I know, again, I will be able to tell you because I do have those numbers. I just don't have them available because of my network issue. But I do know that even on Tuesday at Harris County Commissioners Court, we received approval to bid out another $31 million worth of construction for two projects one in the Hunting Bayou watershed, one in the White Oak Bayou watershed, and we're doing a lot of work. So forgive me for my IT issue, but I do have those numbers. And then what was your other question? What's the best part and what's
of the work that's been done to date? What has pleased you most with the results, and what has been disappointing?
So work done to date pleased me the most. I really like how our recovery projects, the flood control district received a grant around $80 million from a government agency called the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS, and they're part of the United States Department of Agriculture. And they gave us that grant to help us do repairs to our infrastructure after Harvey. And it ended up being around a $90 million program, and it's on schedule to finish in September of this year. And a lot of people go, man, that's 3 years since Harvey, and you're happy about it taking 3 years. And I tell them, working with the federal government and working with the local government and working through all the other issues on permitting, getting $90 million worth of work done in 3 years is pretty impressive. It doesn't sound impressive to people that aren't in our industry, and I understand that. But I'm very happy it's been executed. The work that our contractors have done, for the most part, it hadn't been perfect. I don't want anyone to think that. But I'm just happy that such a big program, almost $100 million recovery program, has been executed and is going to be completed on time. And really get us in a place where we're better off in some places in Harris County than we were before Harvey. Most disappointing, really, and I don't want to throw anybody or any agency or anything under the bus, but most disappointing has been bringing down money from some federal programs and how long that's been that's taken. We will pass the 3-year anniversary of Hurricane Harvey without getting funds for new projects from the Community Development Block Program. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not simple at all. And it's not any one person's fault or any one agency's fault. There's really a lot to it. But when I go speak to the general public and they want to know why, that answer never goes over very well. And that's probably the most disappointing. I like to tell people that, number one, we know about your problem. We're working on the solution. Here's when it's going to happen, and here's when it's going to be done. That's what the general public likes to know. They like to know that you know what the problem is. You have a plan. It's going to start this day. It's going to finish this day. They don't care, in general, they don't care about anything else. And so in many cases, in many communities in Harris County, I don't have those answers. And that's the most disappointing part.
Here's another question. This is back to the Baker study. So the Baker study was released, it updated a Baker study, and in that it included some cost estimates for cost benefit analysis. And the question is, when the flood control district analyzes a project, does it do its own cost benefit analysis and determining whether it should be, a detention project, channel improvements, home buyouts, and the benefits of either one of those? Do you do those analyses? And if so, are the results of those analyses made public?
Okay. So the flood control district doesn't do a traditional benefit to cost analysis. We do calculate costs on every job. That's part of the preliminary engineering phase of our project lifecycle, is calculating the costs of the project. And we do calculate benefits, but the flood control district looks at benefits a little bit differently than the federal government. When we look at benefits, we look at the number of structures that have the risk of flooding reduced. We look at the number of acres of floodplain that have been reduced in our project area. We look at the lane miles of road that won't be underwater during a flood event to allow better access for emergency services. We look at how much, if possible, some of our projects include environmental enhancement. We look at the benefit of our environmental enhancement projects. We look at potential for recreation as part of our projects. So we look at a lot of different things that we calculate either qualitatively or quantitatively as benefits. The typical benefit to cost analysis, the benefit is to the property, the value of the property protected. And that could be, if you go into the federal government benefit cost analysis, it can go into contents of houses, the vehicle costs, lost hours, people that can't go to work, and so on and so forth. We don't go that route except when we have to for the purposes of a federal grant. But all of our preliminary engineering reports involve at least one community engagement meeting. And when we're finished with them and they are approved by Harris County Commissioners Court, they are all placed on our webpage. So every report that we produce and all the information associated with it, once they're approved by Commissioners Court, they are posted on our webpage and anyone is free to download them and read them.
Thanks. Next question. Has the flood control district done any modeling around raising of the Champion Forest Bridge? We
haven't yet.
Or the Cypress Wood Bridge. Sorry.
Yep, we know about that issue. The Champion Bridge, and we're going to look at all the bridges in Michael Baker. The Michael Baker study, the tributary study, looked at a few bridges for us, namely the I-45 TxDOT bridges and the Kirkendall Bridge at Cypress Creek. And we're going to go ahead and look at several other bridges. We've heard from the community, several community members that feel like some of the bridges that cross Cypress Creek are choke points, using their terminology. And so we want to look into that and see if if they really are choke points for a flood event. And if they are, then we can identify that and maybe make plans to either make modifications or possibly replace some of those bridges.
Okay. I'm going to combine these into one. I got a handful of questions here about the cost. This is specific to Ravenno, about the cost of digging a detention basin and the evaluation as to the worthiness of the cost. I'll just read this question and maybe we can sum it up into everybody's questions. Mr. Poppy voiced that the Champion Basin is only about 10% of the acre-feet detention that is needed in the watershed. If he wants 3,500 acre-feet at Champion, how much would it cost to dig over 30,000 acre-feet of dirt?
Well, it would cost. Let me open a calculator real quick. It would cost a lot. Excavation and removal is one of the items that we call it excavation and removal. So that's digging the dirt, putting in a truck, and taking it to an approved disposal location. And it's involved in almost every project that we do, and it's pretty expensive. So let's see and I think what number did you mention, Bobby? Did you say 30,000 acre feet?
Yeah, if he wants 100 acre feet, how much would it cost to dig 30,000 acre feet of dirt?
Okay, so 30,000 acre feet to cubic yards, because we measure, we pay the contractors based on cubic yards. So 30,000 acre feet it's a lot of zeros, 48.4 million cubic yards. So this is going to be a big number. Let's see. Times 12. So it's going to be close to 500 million bucks if I'm doing my math right. I could be wrong. I'll probably need to verify that with those guys because that sounds way too high. But it's very expensive to excavate 30,000 acre feet. I don't think we'll get 30,000. We would never get 30,000 acre feet in one basin. We would like to achieve 30,000 acre feet in the entire Cypress Creek watershed. I think the maximum, if I remember correctly, and I can't remember everything that these days like I used to. Let's see here. If we got 3,000 acre feet out of the potential basin at Ravenno, that would be around 50 million bucks in excavation and removal. And any basin that big would take a long time to construct, which, going back to someone, I think it was Travis's question or someone else's question, D. Henson, that was one of the sticking points that I'm not scared to. I mean, I feel like I can tell anybody that any basin that's built there would take years to build. I can't hide that fact. It's a fact that projects that large, that involve that amount of material, take a long time to build. And we have other stormwater detention basins in the county that aren't that big, that have taken over 2 years to construct. So it's a long effort, and that's one of the sticking points or one of the concerns that many people have about any potential project in that location.
Okay, this is going to be my last question.
Sure.
And then we'll let you off the hook. Will the Baker study 9 basin alternatives solve Cypress Creek watershed's flooding problem? If not, would it not be better to just buy out the structures identified in the Baker study?
Sure. So at the flood control district, our name says flood control, but we were named back in 1937, and we've learned since those days that we can never stop. We can never guarantee that areas in Harris County will never flood. That's just not possible. Mother Nature will always throw a new curveball at us, and I think everyone can believe that. So the projects that we recommend, we know will greatly reduce the risk of flooding for tens of thousands of properties and people. in the Cypress Creek watershed, but we can never promise that we'll completely eliminate the risk of flooding for anyone in Harris County with our projects. And sometimes buyouts are the best option as a flood risk reduction strategy. And that's why we have so many buyout areas. We have a buyout area map on our website, and we have several buyout areas. I don't know how many on Cypress Creek. I think 9 different buyout areas where we're in a voluntary process buying out the entire neighborhood. We've completed one buyout area that's called the Grantwood area, which is on Cypress Creek and Grant Road. It's now a Precinct 3 park, but that whole subdivision is owned by the Harris County Flood Control District. And we have several others that we are actively working on buying out the homes, because there is no project that will reduce the risk of those particular areas because they're so low in the floodplain and floodway of Cypress Creek.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, I'm gonna stop it there. There's a, well, Matt.
Well, Jim Robertson wanted to know about the tunnel study. If you can type in our tunnel study, look at it online. Phase 1 is complete. You can download the report. We're already into phase 2 of our tunnel study, and it started just a few months ago. So I don't have any information related to Cypress Creek. We do have an update on the tunnel, an internal update on the tunnel study coming up in the next month or so, that they are looking at potential deep stormwater tunnels, large diameter deep stormwater tunnels all over Harris County, including the Cypress Creek watershed. Back of the napkin calculation diameter, I'm talking anywhere between 20 to 40 foot diameter. I mean, these are huge tunnels. That a tunnel project may actually be cheaper than all the capital improvement projects that would be done, and also easier to build because it would involve right-of-way acquisition and displacing people and businesses from the floodplain. But we have a very strong team working through those issues, and keep an eye on our website, and we for updates on that. And we'll also include a community engagement meeting to talk about the tunnel study when we get to a point where we have information to share. And then channel L1, KTR says channel L1020101 was recently mowed, and they mowed the reeds, and they didn't remove them, they just mowed them down. So thanks for all the help from flood control and permits with the Dirt Cowboys developing the land next door. At least they have proper permits. I don't know about mowing of that particular channel, but KTR, if Bobby, just be sure to send my email address, and people can send me an email, and I can direct whoever KTR is to the right folks at the flood control district to talk about the vegetation management plan along that channel. Sometimes our mowing contractors make mistakes. It happens more than I like, and so they may have made a mistake out there. I just don't know. And if there is debris that's blocking a channel, I can get crews to go out there and remove that debris. So just be sure to follow up with me on that channel, KTR, and we can get that issue resolved one way or the other. And Bobby, you're muted. I wonder if I can unmute you. I can't unmute you.
Great. All right. Sorry about that. I was hunting down your email address. So
if you don't have it, I can send it to you.
I got it right here. So I'm going to put it into there. So for those of you who have questions for Matt, I just put his email address into the chat box. So take note of that right now. And if you lose it, misplace it, or don't have a pencil handy, contact one of us here at the chamber, and we will be happy to share that with you and pass it along. I want to thank Matt. On a personal note, the chamber being very active in helping pass that bond is a sense of pride for us here at the chamber and myself. And I feel that only good can come from it. And Harris County and Northwest Houston are going to be in a much better place as a result of it. And we continue to stay active and advocate for additional flood funding to help the economy and mitigate our flooding issues here in Harris County. So with that, I want to thank Matt, Russ, and everybody at the Flood Control District for all the hard work you guys are putting in. I know you guys got it coming from 100 different directions. So, hang in there and keep up the good fight.